Good morning. My name is Doug Ramshaw. I'm the president of Minera Alamos. Welcome to this episode 272 of SF Live. It should be noted before we get into the conversation that Kai Hoffmann owns stock and options in our company. And without further ado, the man himself.
Fantastic. Doug, really appreciate it. Best intro we've had on the program so far. Really appreciate it.
Since yesterday's one, yeah.
Yeah, we had one about an hour ago. So Matthew Pete worked it an hour ago. So good, great. No, Doug, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. You had some news out this morning, and that's the main reason we're chatting today. And the company's making great progress on its second project. You announced that you finally received some surface rights or executed some surface rights agreements for the Cerro de Oro gold project. And why don't you run us through the highlights of the release and what does it really mean for Minera?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and for that we appreciate the support and patience of our shareholders. This was something we thought would get done months ago, but I'm a big believer in it's better to do things right than rushed. And it's a big day for the company. It's a big de-risking step in our goal of becoming a multi-mine producer. In Mexico, you can't even start the permitting process without surface rights agreements. I've said before, and I'll say again, I think Mexico does permitting correctly. You start with the social license, and that was highlighted greatly today in terms of not just these surface rights agreements, which convey 25-year development rights for a mine there at Cerro de Oro, but also some of our commitments to the local community in terms of access to jobs and other social works projects there, which I think is very important. Our mines that we build shouldn't be just about providing tax receipts to the government and returns for our shareholders, but they should be about long-standing benefits to the communities we operate in as well. So really happy to have got this out of the way, and it sets the stage for us now to advance the project through permitting to hopefully a construction decision sometime late, let's say late first half of next year.
Now, you made a point really highlighting the relationship with ejidos in the local area. A lot of mining companies seem to forget that sometimes, and it's more and more important to have that social license. How are you going to include the community moving forward as well? Like, I know you're planning a PEA. How does that factor in?
Well, I mean, the community will get, for qualified people, work at the projects either directly or, these mines have lots of indirect impacts in the communities that they operate in. And where we are up in northern Zacatecas, these communities are all largely involved with the big mines in the areas around them, or either directly or indirectly. It was nice that we had unanimous community support for the surface rights agreements on top of the municipality's support as well. And I think that is a good starting point from a point of view of social license. It's important to obviously earn and gain that social license, and thereafter it's about maintaining it. And I think being able to show the benefits of what a new mine can offer the community is really important in terms of the ongoing social license.
Now that you have the social license in terms of the surface rights agreement, what are some of the next steps now? Like, it seems like the cork has been pulled out of the bottle now. It's time for the contents to flow out. What can we expect from you guys in the next few months?
Yeah, this surface rights have been definitely the bottleneck for news flow from Cerro de Oro. So from my perspective, being able to talk about multiple projects now on a go-forward basis with the work programs we have planned for both is important. For Cerro de Oro, that's going to be, we are looking at doing a PEA in Q3 that will be informed by the maiden resource, the base resource we put out shortly after picking up the project, which is 630,000 ounces done at a $1,450 gold price. And I think we'll do our PEA at a $1,450 gold price because it's important to show projects work in poorer gold environments and not just the one that we're in right now. So that PEA will be rapidly produced. for sure. It will be nice for me not to have to tiptoe around project economics. And I know our internal modeling of this project, if the PEA comes even close to that, we'll proudly present that one to the market. We're planning both infill and expansion drilling there. This starter resource is just that. It's a start. There's an upside case we plan for the project, which will actually kind of speak to why we acquired as much in the way of surface rights as we did, because if we're right, this can be a very, very large mine, and by our standards, and as such, having additional pad capacity, which the community agreement provided, is going to be very important for our ability to expand beyond the base case mining scenario there at Cerro de Oro.
Interesting. Like now that you mentioned it, like what is a large by your standards?
Well, I mean, I think, a lot of our projects start out 25, 30, 35,000 ounces and can grow organically over time. I think Cerro de Oro can start out in the 60,000 ounce plus range. With an upside case, it could see, 80, 90, 100,000 ounce a year operation at Cerro de Oro. So, yeah, maybe modest by larger company standards, but, certainly by our standards, will allow us to, I think, meet our goals of building a 150,000 ounce a year gold producer in relatively short order.
Fantastic. Like, run us a bit through the exploration now planned for the next resource update there for Cerro de Oro. Like you mentioned, some infill drilling as well. Do you have a rough estimate, or I know you haven't put out any guidance, at least haven't seen it, in terms of exploration program, budgets, plans like that. So whatever you can share, please do so now.
Yeah, we're looking at probably about 10,000 meters in the second half of this year at Cerro, both infill and expansion. And there's also some regional exploration upside on the project as well. We have a large ground position around the core claims. So we feel like this is an area that was kind of last looked at in any detail back in the 90s in a very different gold price environment, where sub 1 gram material, which it works perfectly for an open pit heap leach for us, was obviously not the flavor of the day back then. And so we've already been starting to look at the regional potential as well as the kinds of expansion potential around the core claims. So that will be certainly a work stream of news flow over the second half of the year.
Fantastic. Roughly 10,000 meters. Like, how much is a meter down in Mexico? I'm assuming it's RC drilling, so $120.
But yeah, we're about that. We own our own drill rig, so it's at Santana right now. But we got drilling we want to do at Santana as well, so we'll probably bring in a different drill rig for Cerro de Oro, or move our one down there initially and then look to contract a drill there. But yeah, costs, Mexico, in this inflationary environment we find ourselves in, our cost structures are very competitive.
No, you so much you're a producer. I'd love to, like, you open the Pandora's box for inflation discussion, right? I know you've done some preliminary math in the background for the PEA to be released in Q3, which is just around the corner, actually. Anything we should be aware of that might come out of left field and blindside us? Like, I know steel prices went up 320% or so in recent months. Is that something we should be worried about, or is there something actually that gives you sleepless nights?
Only this cough I'm dealing with right now. I mean, we don't use a lot of steel. I mean, that's the beauty of heap leach, right? So, I mean, we're not seeing much in the way of cost escalation right now in Mexico. I mean, some minor adjustments in reagent prices for the leaching process. We fabricate our own carbon plant design. We use shipping containers that are retrofitted as offices and stuff like that. So we come up with very efficient ways of getting around cost. But yeah, we're not building some big milling architecture down there with large steel components. So we're very insulated from inflationary pressures right now. We're not immune from them, but certainly, that's the beauty of this low capex business model that we have. That Cerro de Oro could be a $25 million build. If we see a 20% increase in that, it's $5 million. It's annoying, but it doesn't create some major funding shortfall.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it's not going to throw you off the rails here either or derail the project, giving, I'm assuming cheap economics for the overall project. I think we covered Cerro de Oro quite extensively. I think for now, we'll see some more drill results. Obviously, really looking forward to the PEA. So to give you something to talk about as well, some metrics, and give us a development timeline. We want to see this thing come into production. But let's use the last 5 minutes to quickly talk about Santana. You put out an operations update at the end of May. How are things going in Sonora?
Yeah, I feel like we should be playing a Toto video now, talking about the rains coming down in Africa, because the biggest thing in northern Mexico has been the same drought that's been hitting California, and I'm happy to say that regionally speaking now, after 5 months where there was barely a drop of precipitation, the rains, which you can kind of set your watch by, are coming in Sonora now. So that did mean that we were seeing a reduction in our leaching in May and into June, but that will balance out with getting material that we have on the pad stacked. It's been mined, it's stacked on the pad, it's just not under leach. We should see that in Q3, that production pick up considerably as we're able to, with adequate new water, get everything under leach correctly. And it's just the nature of the, typically in Mexico, or where we are, you'll see, and we said this in the May update, a typical January through June, you get maybe 100, 120 millimeters of rain. And then the clouds open and you get one hell of a rainy season. Last year, we only saw 45 mil of rain during the first 6 months of the year, 30 of which came in January. I think in comparison, and that was a dry 6 months. This year, there was only about 2 millimeters of rain at site over the first 6 months of the year. So even with those kinds of worst drought scenarios, we were still largely leaching through, the first 4.5 months of the year adequately, because when that rainy season comes, it recharges all the natural reservoirs and everything. And so there's a bit of a cyclical kind of nature that if Q2 drops off a little, Q3 more than makes up for it. And so we're preparing for that right now. We're looking at opening up the main Nicho pipe. That will allow us to push in the second half of the year to more what we call commercial production levels there. But yeah, thankful that the rainy season in Mexico is as predictable as your
Don't say German trains. Don't say German trains.
No. I couldn't think of anything other than your beard, but yeah.
Fantastic. No, Doug, you mentioned earlier you plan some drilling in Santana as well. Just elaborate for a second: when, where, how, and how obviously we know, but when and where.
Yeah. The beauty of Cerro de Oro is it's one big deposit that's already largely been defined, and it will organically grow. With Santana, it's a cluster of these gold-bearing breccia pipes, which you saw when you were down there with me a few years ago. And we know they're all gold-bearing. And we know that we really only need one or two of those other pipes to yield the kinds of volumetrics and grade that Santana's production profile can grow quite considerably. So we do want to do that first pass drilling so that we can prioritize which pipes should be the ones that we go back in and infill and start pit design work on and the like. So I think in the second half of this year, we'll look to start, these 3 or 4 holes into each of those pipes just to get a sense of the grade we're seeing at surface is translated to the grade in the drill hole, and the volumetrics we see from, the surface expression of those pipes, which ones are going to be the most important to prioritize for infill drilling. So I love exploration. I hate the cost of it. I've said that numerous times in numerous interviews. I love exploration though. That's, and I think for Minera, the beauty of our business model is we can fund that exploration ourselves as we get these mines up and running, and we can give that kind of discovery side of a story alongside the mine development and mine production side. So a little bit of everything.
Fantastic. Yeah, Doug, we got one question here on Twitter that I want to ask since we're talking about Santana, and the question is like, what's the ceiling for production and mine expansion at Santana? Like, what are the limits?
Well, I guess the best way of answering that is whenever we look at building a mine, that project has to meet a couple of criteria. I mean, is there enough resource to start with? And it's in an area where we can build something. Great. And if it meets that check mark, it still needs to meet a second one, which is if we build it, where's the exploration upside where we can expand it still further? And so, we want to see projects which can yield at least 1.5 million type ounce resources, because at 1.5 million ounces, we can look at close to 100,000 ounces a year for 9-10 years of life, and I think Santana meets those criteria, which is why we built it. And we can take our time to expand, especially when we had that luxury of the cash flow coming off the operation. So, this cluster of pipes there conceivably can yield that 1.5 million to 2 million ounce threshold in due course. And so from a production ceiling point of view, Santana, I think, can grow to be that 80-100,000 ounce a year operation in due course. Cerro de Oro, I think, can get there far more rapidly because it will be one pit that will continue to expand. Santana will be a sequence of discrete pits servicing a central facility.
Fantastic, Doug. Thanks so much for answering that. And maybe my last question: you've Q3 is 3 months long. Are we going to see it in July, August, September? When do we see the PEA? Can you just frame it a little bit? Because Q3 is 9 days away.
Yeah, it's not going to be 10 days away. I assure you of that. No, I mean, it won't take us too long to put the PEA together because, effectively we are adding the economic sections to our resource report, the ones that are missing when you're just coming out with a resource report. So it will be independently authored by a series of QPs. It won't have some flashy logo of a SRK or a CSA on the front cover, but it will be independently co-authored by a series of QPs. A large amount of that work was done and ready for our permit submissions. So I'm hoping, a couple of months into Q3 is my guess. It would certainly be nice to unveil it, in advance of Beaver Creek and Denver, where I get to go out and talk those numbers in detail. So my guess would be middle to second half of Q3.
Now, since usually the QPs are writing it, like I had a really interesting conversation at PDAC with another CEO who's involved in a mine build right now, and he said he's getting quotes from contractors valid for 24 hours right now for certain things. Do you see that in Mexico as well? And that's an extreme, right? So that's the 24 hours is an extreme, but it happens.
The reality is, this whole pandemic really has exposed supply chains and the like. And I think, it's an interesting point because if a few years ago, if you asked me what I would want to do with the first $3 million of free cash coming off Santana or Cerro de Oro or wherever, it would be, well, let's reinvest that into drilling to show the resource growth. Now I think it's more incumbent on a company to ensure that it has a proper inventory of spare parts and consumables so that operations are not impacted from supply chain issues. And so we're using a lot of what we're understanding with the supply chain with regard to Santana to inform our advanced planning for Cerro de Oro, so Cerro de Oro can be brought on in as optimized a manner time-wise as possible.
Fantastic. No, great. Doug, I'm going to let you go. I think we talked Santana and Cerro de Oro at length. Have a cup of tea, put some honey in it. That's a secret recipe right there. And really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on SF Live. Thanks for giving our viewers and your investors an update. Really appreciate it. And we'll have you back on very, very soon. And hopefully we get another site visit in as soon as well. So waiting for the email.
Sounds good, Kai.
Fantastic. Doug, thanks so much. Everybody else, you know the spiel. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Leave a comment. We want to hear from you as well. We'll get to your questions. We'll answer every single one of them, so make sure to do that. And please feel free to share the video with your friends and like-minded investors as well. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more